All right. Well, welcome back. My name is Tobias. The show is called Mindflower, where I bring you the astrological insights that I'm feeling. What's the date today? Gosh, it's like July 14th. Yeah, July 14th. So I quit making these horoscopes because I felt like I was just repeating myself. And honestly, that whole Neptune in Pisces transit, I really began and continued living living in the mythical and symbolic realms of life, which is all well and good, but it certainly created like a disconnect between me and most of the rest of the people that I know. And so another side effect of that is that I started to feel like the message that I have often shared is stuff that people already know. There's some part of me that's like in this assumption that because I know and understand these things, then suddenly it's like table stakes for everyone else. And on top of that, like my life transitioned into a different chapter. And while my spiritual practice is still very important to me and a critical part of who I am and always will be, I don't I started to feel like it's just not like it was, right? With all the strong Pisces energy. And yet it's important, I've found, actually not to leave it behind, because this work is part of why I'm here, and putting out these horoscopes or tarot videos or whatever is a lot. It's like a practice for me of like refining my message and figuring out what it is I actually do have to say and being comfortable saying it. So without further ado, I'm looking forward to getting back into it because it's a part of my daily practice that keeps me in tune. And so, as much as I would like to say that I do it for the people, and certainly there is a part of that, but it's also, in some sense, it's like me putting on my own oxygen mask first, because what it does is it keeps me in tune with the rhythms. And so there's a really beautiful and special and rare alignment of outer planets taking place right at this very moment. We have Uranus at 4 degrees of Gemini, and we have Neptune at 4 degrees of Aries, and we have Pluto at 4 degrees of Aquarius. I think they're all at 4, right? Like they're all within a degree, which is crazy, right? I mean, it's just wild. Like, and on top of that, Jupiter wants to play, right? Jupiter's at 3 degrees Leo, so it's going to hit that alignment. And Venus is at 5 degrees of Virgo. So they're all right there in that pocket. And we've seen really rare conjunctions in 2020, right? And we saw that was the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter thing. And we saw, of course, the Neptune Aries conjunction with Saturn on the equinox point. And that was really significant and powerful. But these are sextiles and trines, which are harmonious and beautiful aspects. And conjunctions, new beginnings are always, kind of difficult, right? Aries, it's confrontational, it's a fire energy. You really have to get into your warrior, it's a war, it's a battle, trying to start something new, begin a new chapter. The sextiles are super sweet. It's harmonious, it's elemental harmony, it's elemental compatibility, and in this case with Neptune and Pluto and Neptune and Uranus, it's air and fire, which is like the intellect and our creativity, our passion, our drive, our mind and our expression, right? And the trine between Uranus and Pluto Aquarius and Gemini it's so much about the novel and the new, which makes sense, right? Because again, we've like, I haven't put out a horoscope in a long time, but if you follow astrology, you know people have been going on about this new world that we're in, and you can see it all around you as the crumbling that became so obvious in 2020 has now passed this point of like critical mass where it's just like breaking apart faster and faster. And so I've spent a great deal of time over the past years discussing the wounded identity, right? Because that was the Chiron and Aries thing, and Chiron's now moved into Taurus. And so when I spend so much time, right, discussing and just elaborating on the conflict that can arise between our imperial self, which is the part of us that's still identified and connected to and channeling the intention, will, desire, and design of the creative spirit of the universe, versus the part of our mind that tells a story, the part of our mind that identifies as an individual, the part of us that is separate, right? And it's so interesting that people go on and on about how we're living in a simulation. And it's ironic because we are living in the part of our brain that's responsible for simulating reality, right? I mean, that's how it works. You come up against a problem, you have an infinite amount of futures laid out in front of you, you have a goal and a direction, and you run little simulations. Well, if I put this there and I do this here, if I make this move and that move and the other move, like, you know, how is that gonna like play out? And that was such a critical function that evolved in our brain. And it's totally taken over the whole mechanism. It's taken over the whole situation. And now it thinks. The part of you that simulates reality, mulling over, recapitulating, again, the identity crises, the like illnesses of identity, people's obsession with like, I identify as this and I identify as that. And there's this like pathological need to have and hunger to have the world, the universe, the community, everybody reaffirm that identity, because it's like fundamentally insecure, because it's not like for all of us, it's not actually aligned with the deeper, more pure, more creative, and more real self. Like the part of you that's living and breathing, that animates you. That's the God that was made in the image of humans. That's the creative spirit of the universe. That's what should be driving the bus. And instead, we have this like smaller functional tool, which has come to believe that it's the thing, that it's the piece of God, that it's the creator, that it's the master architect, the designer. And so it's creating this whole virtual world. That's all this like social media to reaffirm its own existence and its own primacy, because fundamentally it knows that it's not the real thing, right? It's only a piece of the real thing. And so we all carry this internal conflict, all of us, everybody. And this is where like, you know, this is the root of the autophobia and the self-hatred, right? And the insecurities. And like AI is a great example. We project all our worst fears about ourselves onto the AI. You hear it everywhere. Humans are terrible. Humans are bad. The world would be so much better if humans didn't exist. Because we're all carrying around this fundamental insecurity and this fundamental guilt, because ultimately the small I, the ego, the identity, the narrative knows that it's not the true complete self. Yet it puts itself in place of the true complete self. It masquerades as the true complete self. And it requires affirmation in that delusion. And so we all have that confusion within us. And I went on at length about this forever and ever, because that's like the Pisces Aries thing. And that's the Chiron in Aries, is the wounded identity. Because what? and this is the beautiful thing about astrology, because like things progress. So like the medicine for the wounded identity is to ground into your body, because your body is the thing that's living and breathing. Like people miss the whole metaphor of the Bible, of the whole story of Jesus. They just like don't get it, right? Because Jesus being crucified on the cross of matter, okay, like is the symbol of the Godhead, the creative spirit of the universe, pouring itself out, being broken apart, falling into the material world, which is the 3D physical reality. Like we inhabit the body of God, is the physical universe. Okay? And so like your body is a piece of God's body, right? And the metaphor of Jesus being crucified is, yes, like it's the breaking apart of the completeness and the wholeness that is what God means and represents, is that divine unity. And it was shattered into a bunch of tiny little fractals so that it could come to know itself more completely. And so for us, when we're fragmented, when we're shattered, when we're confused, the medicine is to be in the world. It's the being in your body, right? Not in like the simulation, because the simulation inside the brain takes the place of action. I could sit here imagining myself doing all these different things, like, oh, I'm gonna become a Green Beret, or I'm gonna go like move to the city and be like a playboy, and I can imagine all these different scenarios, and that gives me like a little dopamine hit, and it satisfies the small I, because the small I doesn't exist. It is in itself just a fragment and a figment. And so it's satisfied with the imaginings and the simulations and the daydreams, right? Instead of the reality of what it would take to actually like be able to run a 12-minute mile and like do 15 pull-ups and like whatever it might take to be like a special operator or whatever, become like a famous artist, become an influencer, become like a world-renowned astrologer, become like a famous musician. Like I could just sit here in my house playing music, imagining myself headlining global tours as a DJ. And that takes the place of me actually grinding it out and doing the like three-dimensional efforts that are required to build a career in the music industry. I'm just like pulling examples out of my ass and out of the hat to try and illustrate the point, right? Which is that when you want to reconnect with God, then the way to do that is interacting with the three-dimensional reality, because the three-dimensional reality is what stimulates the creative principle within us, because we encounter problems in the world, obstacles, and that sparks our creativity to solve them and overcome them. And so when we like it, action precedes clarity. You don't get clear, like action, like the thoughts come later, right? The clarity comes later. It's the doing that matters. It's the being that matters, right? It's the day to day. That's the whole metaphor of chopping wood and carrying water. And so the medicine for the wounded identity was to re-embody our own creative spark in our lives, whatever and however that means. And Uranus was transiting Taurus that whole time, that whole 8 years, 2018 to 2026. Uranus was in Taurus trying to help us with that medicine of revolutionizing and liberating our self-worth and the way that we relate to ourselves and the way that we feel good about who we are. And that translates into making money. That translates into relationships, self-worth, and value of every kind and in every form. And so Uranus was trying to clean that whole zone up for us so that Chiron could transition in there, because Chiron has been in that same time period, 2018-ish to 2026, Chiron was in Aries. Aries also, it's the identification, okay? Aries rules the identification of the things which are assigned to you. It's your name. It's your biological gender at birth, right? Like these are the identity things. And like it's your body type, it's your eye color, it's your genetics, it's everything that you had on the first moment that you arrived here, that you didn't choose, right? With your little small ego I individual self that is playing out this theater of your current life. It was chosen by the deeper imperial self in the bardo when you were picking what incarnation you wanted to have, but like that's a whole nother conversation. So like the whole very controversial to say this, but like the whole gender thing is like the perfect example of like people, it's a perfect example of the conflict between like the small I and like the imperial self, and like the wounding around being able to show up as who we were born to be, and the dissociation which has become so rampant due to like that whole dynamic I was discussing about like the small I versus the imperial I, and how like the more that the small I tries to claim the place of our own divine nature, the more it becomes dissociated, and the more like the social media and the virtual realities and the virtual spaces just explode, as well as the conflicts and the wounds and the the drama about like what I identify as, right? And so like it's also our courage though, because it takes courage to be who you were born to be. Straight up, full stop. It takes courage to be who you were born to be. It takes courage to be yourself. It takes courage to start something new. It takes courage to accept the things that are out beyond your control and to just drive, just go for it. That's Aries. Stop thinking about it so much. Stop making it so complicated. Just like do the damn thing. That's the Aries energy. It's the war energy, because it is a battle. It is. I mean, life, it's a struggle. And so that's why Aries comes first, because it bestows you with the strength and the courage and the power to be who you are, which is how you thrive in life. And so now Chiron's coming into Taurus, which is the first earth sign. And it has, so the earth, of course, has to do with the physical reality, has to do with the body. All the earth signs have to do with the body in a certain way. And like, so Taurus, like I was saying, because we were talking about Uranus there, it's the self-worth, it's the value, it's how I feel beautiful and the things that are beautiful to me and the way that I feel about myself and the money that's in my bank account. And so with that transition, it's like, okay, well, if you didn't find the courage to be who you were born to be, then like now you're gonna like really feel the squeeze financially, and it's just gonna like exacerbate, right? So that's that's part of what people are facing right now. I mean, that's just like one portion of the transition that we've made. And so to address some of the other stuff, right? Saturn and Neptune have come into Aries, right? Saturn's halfway through Aries now. Saturn's at 14 degrees Aries, Neptune's at 4 degrees Aries, and I'll get back to that outer planet alignments, but I'm playing catch up from like where I left off and all of the things that I was talking about, as this transition was beginning. And now we're through the doorway. And so Chiron left Aries, now we got Neptune and Saturn there. And Saturn's all about the forms and the structures and the discipline. Neptune's all about the delusions and the spiritual path, right? So you've heard a lot. I mean, Dolores Cannon and like everybody's talked about like the splitting of the roads and the splitting of the reality and the like diverging of the like universes. And it's only becoming worse and worse, right? Because like 2020 should have showed you. 2020 was like the wake up call. 2020 was like the last call. It's like the bartender at the bar being like, all right, last call, everybody. Like it's time to like learn the lesson to make your moves, and time unfolds slowly. So we've had like a 6-year moment of like, hopefully that whole transition like shook you to your core, which it did, but hopefully you instead of trying to like hold on and rebuild and cling to everything that was before, hopefully you leaned in. Hopefully you felt yourself falling and instead dove. And now you've been through this wild like 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025 of just like, you know, things are kind of happening, things are going in a direction, the whole fucking world's going crazy, like there's like winning and losing, and it's all very chaotic and confusing, and it's impossible to see where things are going, but like you're trusting your guides, you're making moves, like God's showing up for you at the right time to be like, cool, you're headed in the right direction. If you hit it in the wrong direction, you get some correction still. It's still very like Piscean. And now, boom, that world's gone. And the people that were trying to cling to it are hurting the worst right now. They're hurting the absolute worst. And if you're, you know, some combination of like intelligent, lucky, and blessed, then, you know, you were listening that whole time and trying to work with the currents and build so that now that the starting gun has banged and the doors have been flung wide open and it's like, charge, go for it, find your place. It's like, you know, it's like the festival gates or whatever, you know, if people, I don't know if that's an experience people have had, or like the concert and everyone's like rushing to get to the front row first, like the doors open, people just flood in, like, and that's how people are flooding into this new reality. And that's the moment that we're in. It's like, yo, get in there, stake your claim, dude. The early movers are going to experience that time dilation where they're so much farther. Like the faster and sooner you moved, the more you accelerate, right? And so, I mean, look around the world. People are going through crazy shit, right? Like wars, there's like insecurity in the job market. You know, like the welfare state is on the brink of collapse. It's just like, I mean, the writing's been on the wall. And now like the trumpets are sounding, right? So feel confident and empowered in who you are and like make your moves. That's all the Aries energy, right? Because that's how we feel that spiritual energy again of that Pisces thing of Neptune, which is the like spiritual connection as well as the delusions, but it's in Aries, which means that like in this moment God speaks through action and we connect with spirit through action. And Saturn is like, you better make the right actions, you know, because what happens with explosives, the more you compress it, the more powerful it becomes. And so Saturn's trying to basically like direct the explosion of this energy. And so Neptune, though, at 4 degrees is making that harmonious aspect to that 4 degrees Uranus in Gemini. And the Uranus and Gemini thing, I mean, Uranus is the nervous system, right? So that's the whole thing about like, you know, it's also the personal unconscious, right? It's the part of the iceberg. Like if the ocean is like the creative spirit and the imperial self, then the bottom of the iceberg is your personal unconscious. It's still you, you know, it's like distinct from like the whole ocean, but it's still you, but it's underneath the surface. And then that tiny like top little bit is your awareness, right? Your conscious awareness. And so Uranus and Gemini, it's like really fast. It's like a hyper speed, hyper information overload, like infinite bandwidth, infinite downloads. It can be a little bit frenetic. I mean, Gemini is just, it's all about the latest thing and it's all about the new information. And Uranus rules Aquarius, right? I mean, it's electricity and the internet, right? And like societies. And so you put those together and there's like a supercharge going on, like to the point of where the wires are going to melt and where like the transformers are going to explode. And the thing about Gemini is it's like all the different perspectives. Gemini's like, oh, I could see it from this angle, I could see it from that angle, like I could see it from the other angle. So what happens when you put that in society? Everybody's seeing out of a different window, but like only 1 out of 12 people is a Gemini by nature, if you're just going by sun signs. So like what happens is what you see in. It's like tremendous amounts of conflict, right? People can't agree. There's just so much information. Nobody has any idea what's real anymore. Nobody has any idea what's fucking true, unless you learn the lesson of 2020, which is like the truth comes from within. The truth comes from your body, right? Embodying yourself, who you were born to be, is the only truth there is, full stop. That's your only connection, is your spiritual connection. Your spiritual connection is your body. So if you want to be spiritually connected and know the truth, then you have to embody who you were born to be. And Pluto, of course, is in Aquarius. And Pluto is like shaking the foundations of this of the globe, right? Of the global interconnected civilizations, right? Because if you like, the way to understand it is to understand the way that the structures were changed when Pluto was in Capricorn, because Capricorns is the structures and the institutions. And so between 2008 and 2024, 2025, we witnessed the unraveling and the collapse, and like the seeds were sown of like the financial system, you know, like Bitcoin, right? And like the financial crisis, and like just the inflation and like the fiat currency, right? That all the institutional legitimacy has been totally drained from like Congress and the Justice Department and the presidency and like the academy. Nobody trusts the universities anymore. It's all like corporate funded fraudulent research. There's no science anymore that people can really trust, because like, you know, they just make the science say whatever they want it to say based upon like what money they're trying to make. I mean, it's all been revealed, right? And so like that same destruction that just occurred to the institutions is now going to take place in the Aquarian zone. And the Aquarian zone is all about our broader communities. Gemini is like your immediate family, your friend group, your neighborhood. Aquarius is like the country, the state, the country, the world, you know, the like the ethnicity group, the nation, like the demographic, right? The big groups of people. And like that's the thing, is people identify really strongly with these labels. And Aquarius, you know, Pluto in Aquarius is gonna like, it's really gonna challenge people to find a healthy sense of being an individual, rather than finding their individuality by associating themselves with a particular label. Okay, because that's not actually being an individual, right? Like, you know, it's like when I was in high school, you know, it was like cool to be like a punk or like a skater, which is supposed to be like this unconventional like outsider group. You know, they don't dress like the preppies, and they don't like play sports with the jocks. They're like, you know, not doing what the popular cool kids are doing, you know, but at the same time, like they're still conforming to that, to an image. So even though it's like what we're going to see, and what we are seeing, what we're going to continue to see, is the masquerading of collectivism as like an individual identity, right? And instead of embodying who they were born to be, people are going to be like, oh, I'm a Republican, so I do what Republicans do. Oh, I'm a something else, what that people are. Like, I'm a raver, so I'm gonna do what ravers do, you know? Like, I am this label, I am this thing, and so I'm gonna make all my choices and build my whole life and build my whole experience around like identifying with this externally defined collective identity, you know? And that's going to be really widespread, and those big groups are going to be in that like groupthink space, right? It's kind of like that lowest common denominator energy. This is what's feeding these like religious wars and like global conflicts. It's what's feeding the like high state of political tension in the United States, is people buying into the like herd mindset on like a large scale, and then the two herds are going to war, right? And so Pluto's just gonna be like, fuck yeah, do it some more, do it some more, do more war, do more conflict, do more misguided identity. Because Pluto's like the Punisher in a sense, right? Pluto loves delivering hard lessons. Pluto's like, yes, please resist some more. And the lesson of Pluto in Aquarius is to understand what healthy Leo energy is. If you were born with Pluto in Aquarius, or when you're looking at a birth chart, the evolutionary intentions, the Pluto polarity point is the point directly opposite where Pluto is. Because where Pluto is like the deep, intense, obsessive, like historical addiction to a particular energy. It's like the whole theme of your past life karma. And if your whole theme of your past life karma is so like intensely Aquarian, then you're imbalanced, you're missing the Leo energy. And so we're going to learn that as a collective, as we're going to experience like the most extreme intensity of what the shadow of Aquarius energy is, the shadow of society, the shadow of collectivism. Because that is what's going to teach us about how to be Leo, right? Which is being, again, all the fire signs, it's like being who you were born to be, right? And Leo is your spark, it's your heart. Your heart has a particular frequency that's unique, and it has a particular creative endowment. It's imbued with your own unique little fractal, and you have to honor it and follow it and celebrate it and share it. The sun shines for everybody, sustains all the life in the solar system, holds all the planets in orbit. The sun, and it does it all just for the joy of the brilliance of just existing. And that's where people need to be. That's like the medicine, right? And that's what Jupiter is like checking in with this outer planet alignment. It's getting ready to oppose Pluto, you know? But it's a reminder, right? Because these outer planets don't align like this. Like you'll never see this again. Like these, like Uranus trine Pluto, both sextiling Neptune, you won't ever see again for the rest of your life. I haven't done the math. It's like, but I'm guessing probably won't happen because they move really slow, you know? And so it's like you, I mean, fuck it, miss it if you must experience a difficult life of not being yourself. You know, who am I to tell you not to do that, right? Everybody's got their own journey, their own path, their own karma. But it's gonna hurt and it's gonna be sad, you know, and like it's gonna be one of those moments that you look back on where you could have gone one way and you didn't, and you went another way. And sure, you could still make that a good way. That's the cool thing about God, right? Is there's always a path to like a better future. But the reality is missed opportunities do have consequences in this limited life that we have. And this is the biggest opportunity that we've been building for, right? And we've now like arrived in this place where we've come through the gateway, we've come through the doorway, we're in the new world. And now it's like, okay, this is like you going on the quest. And like right when you get in, like it's like right before you get to the like weird fucked up dungeon or like the really crazy like underworld, or like, I mean, we're actually like, we're coming out of the underworld, but like like the point is it's like that moment when like Gandalf shows up to like give you the secret tool that you need, right? It's like when the dwarves, like remember in The Hobbit when they all set out and like the first thing that happens is they run across these like cave trolls and steal the magic swords from them. Like this is getting the magic swords, right? This is when Bilbo finds like the ring, you know? It's like when you get your magical tools. Maybe that's not a good example because like the ring has all this other fucked up energetic attachment. It's like when Luke meets Yoda, right? It's like right now all the outer planets are showing up to like deliver the gifts and deliver the goods and like deliver this like this deep felt sense of empowerment and courage, right? Mercury is retrograde in Cancer, so we none of us have any idea how we fucking feel. Like it's like I have no fucking clue what's going on. Like I can't even like verbalize. I can't explain. I'm like intellectually like kind of confused, very confused. It's this deep felt sense of empowerment and confidence and courage, which if you've been fucking off since 2020, then like it can be hard to tap into that right now. But if you've been doing though, if you just have been giving it a fucking honest effort, I swear to God, like, because everybody fucks up, everybody makes mistakes, but there are now or never moments, and like they stack onto each other. And like there were other ones which like, I mean, like I'll use myself as an example, right? Like if I would have committed to being like 100% clean and sober, like at any point in the past like 15 years, you know, like I'm doing great now. I have a great fucking career, you know what I'm saying? My life is good, you know, I've lived a beautiful life, whatever, but like I could be in a like whole different universe had I made different choices, right? And they're choices that I knew I needed to make for a long time. I knew certain habits that I had and lifestyle choices and like different consumption patterns were holding me back, but like I just was like, I fucked it off. But there's other stuff I didn't fuck off. And because I didn't fuck the other stuff off, I'm still like in a really good position. And for all the changes that I haven't made yet, like this is the time to like fully turn the last page on all that shit. The fucked up lifestyle choices, the fucked up like everything that comes from that confused identity and the low self-worth, you know what I'm saying? Like that low status, low self-esteem vibe, you know, and all the behaviors that reinforce it. Like this is the moment to like turn the page on all those, you know, because that is the price that we can pay if we want to truly self-actualize into the most dramatically extreme beauty of our creative potential, right? So that's what this moment is. It's the invitation to that full embodiment, to that full empowerment, right? And it's fucked up, right? The South Node is on Regulus right now. And it's like, so it's not about like the Virgo, like virtue signaling of being better than other people. It's not about like establishing any kind of like measurement against anyone else. It's not about like the flex. It's about, as we used to call it, it's about the inner game, right? Like this is the last moments of the North Node in Pisces, right? It's 0 degrees Pisces. That Aquarius Pisces cusp represents like the pinnacle of human achievement, right? Like, because as soon as you cross from Aquarius into Pisces, like Aquarius is the human sign. Once you get past Aquarius, there's no, like, it's just all that's left is God, right? So that cusp of where the North Node sits right now between Aquarius and Pisces is like the peak of what a human can be. And it's not about being a king. It's about it's about being human, right? Because like the kingdom of heaven is within, and it's who you were born to be. And when you become who you're born to be, then you're in heaven, right? So the other thing that's going on right now is we are preparing for a Venus retrograde in Scorpio. Happens every 8 years. And the Venus retrogrades every like 18 months or so, but it's on like an 8-year cycle. So for every 8 years, when Venus retrogrades and it conjuncts the sun, they meet within a few degrees of the place where they were 8 years previously. So Venus retrograded in Scorpio in 2018. And I got to give David Palmer credit for this shtick, but I also am going to put it out there and elaborate on it, because not only do I know people who need to hear this, but like I myself have very intimate experience with it. So Venus is going to retrograde in Scorpio, and the last time Venus retrograded in Scorpio was 2018. And when Venus retrogrades in Scorpio, that's Venus energy it's the self-worth and the bank account. It's also like the love and relationships. And so Scorpio is deep, intense shadow and karma. And Venus retrogrades always will bring back energy of the past. That's when your ex will hit you up. It's when different things happen. But Venus retrogrades in Scorpio are particularly intense because of what Scorpio represents and how deep and magnetic it is. It's Hades and Persephone, right? And so like should be something that people have on their radar, because we are in the lead up to Venus and retrograding in Scorpio, and it will be the last Venus retrograde in Scorpio for a long time, because the Venus retrograde on that particular star point is moving into Libra. And this Venus retrograde will actually retrograde back into Libra. And so there's a certain aspect of how everything I just described could potentially be derailed by the shadow work that we feel we still need to do with somebody that we already did it with. And it's tough, right? So you think back to 2018, and like I myself was in love with a woman in 2018, and we met in 2014, and we broke up. It got kind of, we had a lot of fun, a lot of really beautiful moments, but it started to get kind of ugly in 2017, and we split up. And in 2018, the universe was sending me all kinds of signs. So I had like hotties, like on hotties in my inbox, dude, hotties on the wire, hanging out all the time, just like living the life I was living at the time, and all kinds of invitations to like move into a different world. And instead, I was like so obsessed with this other woman. And we ended up getting back together and moving in together. And at the end of 2018, right when Venus was retrograding, and what it ultimately resulted in was some of the worst moments of my life and some of the worst moments of her life. Now, do we still love each other, right? I mean, like we're good, there's a lot of mutual respect there. We have a really strong friendship, but like she would definitely agree. And if you know who I'm talking about, you could ask her and she'd be like, oh yeah, like it got really ugly and really nasty. And I ended up having to relearn a bunch of karmic lessons that I should have already learned. But I felt like I needed, and she too, we felt somehow like we needed to go back to that painful place and fucking go through all of it, only like 100 million times worse. And that shit actually fucked me up, and like I was in like a really fucked up headspace for like a long time, and like I made a bunch of fucked up choices while I was in the fucked up headspace, and like it ties in with like I have like a 12th house sun, and like I got Saturn conjunct Neptune in the 8th, and my Mars is like trining Pluto, and like so yeah, it was an important journey for me, of understanding my own self-worth, but like it caused, or it was like the first domino in a whole sequence. And again, of course, there was great Scorpio sex, right? And there was like intensity, and there was like a lot of beautiful moments, of course, because there always is. And so like if you're feeling like you need to go relive some karmic lessons with somebody that you already like experienced karmic lessons from, particularly from a story that might have began or had a moment in 2018, then sure, you can expect to have great sex, and it will be very intense, and you'll go ahead and get dragged through the underworld again. And maybe that'll be just what you need, right? And you can still live a beautiful life after that, but you will miss out on the thing that you've been waiting for that's trying to come in. Because not only is the universe, like I said, this is like this is all the gods and angels and wisdom teachers and keepers like showing up with the tools that you need to like embody your truest creative self and like have the courage to be who you are. And if instead you want to go like down a road that you've already been down because you have this really intense like obsessive draw, or you feel like, again, it's the Scorpio thing, this person has something that I don't have, like I need them, in order to like feel more powerful or like accomplish something. Like Scorpio is very transactional. And so like when we're doing Scorpio, we are making transactions about sex and money and deep energies. And often, there's an undercurrent of subconscious death wish there, especially if you have Pluto and Scorpio. Some people have Pluto and Sag. It's not always that dark and intense. I do have Pluto and Scorpio, so it's that dark and intense for me. But Scorpio is dark and intense for everybody. And ultimately, like if you're choosing to go down that road because you feel like it's going to bring you something that you don't have, then, you'll get what you asked for, but it's going to be what you subconsciously asked for, which is another difficult lesson that you should have already learned. So keep that in mind as we move through the summer and through the fall, and stay tuned for more horoscopes. Appreciate y'all, fam. Peace.